To be honest, I'm not a fan of large phones anymore, but we are also forced into it by companies like Google, Samsung, and Motorola to an extent. Apple kind of allows people to generally get the same product in a more reasonable size since the iPhone 6, but realistically that's only been fully true since the iPhone 11 Pro, with phones like the 12 Pro and 15 Pro series having slightly different telephoto cameras. Ultimately, Apple was one of, if not the only company making a normal size and a plus size phone without any major trade-offs. Google, on the other hand, has always had the XL or Pro phones be large until this year, with the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL. Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review. Time to review the Pixel I didn't actually want. Yes, this was not actually my choice of a phone. I wanted the Pixel 9 Pro, but couldn't get a good deal on that. Of course, for resale, you can, kind of, but brand new, I got this Pixel 9 Pro XL for about $350, which includes the cost of the phone that I traded in to get this. Let me tell you about the specs, which is what people think a review is, and then I'll give you my opinion, which is what an actual review is. A real review, if I may. Coming from the Pixel 7 Pro, this is pretty close, but definitely better. The main difference is the size of the camera bar, which now has its own island. While back there, everything has a matte coating, like the back glass, which is now one solid piece going from the top to the bottom, with a huge camera bump that interrupts the top part. That said, the camera glass, temperature sensor, and for some reason the side of the camera bump are all glossy. This is Gorilla Glass Victus 2, by the way, just like the front, but it's the same as the Pixel 8 Pro, and I'm pretty sure people will figure out how to break this. Then the metal frame, which is assumed to be 100% recycled aluminum, is glossy. Now I understand why the cheaper Pixel 9 gets a matte finish, but I would really like to not be forced to put a case onto this phone to prevent scratches. Either way, on the top we have a microphone and a glossy 5G ultra-wideband antenna, while the left side is just regular antenna bands. The right side is the power and volume rocker, the former that always makes me miss the accented power buttons that used to be on Pixels. Then on the bottom we get the usual, SIM card tray with eSIM support, a microphone, a loudspeaker that pairs to the earpiece and gives a weird stereo feel when having the phone sideways. I never understand why they don't have a double slit at the top and bottom of the phone's screen to give you a true stereo feel again. They can already route the earpiece, just do the same thing at the bottom. Instead, sorry for the small rant, the speaker sounds better in vertical when compared to landscape, meaning that vertical content is being favored over horizontal content. Regardless, the last port is a USB-C 3.2 port, which allows for 5 gigabit speed and allows for 37 watts of wired charging. And yes, you can do it pretty easily. Just buy the charger and cable in the description and essentially use that combination for life, for everything. Don't listen to articles complaining about charging speeds because they obviously aren't using the right chargers. The iPhone 16 though, I'm not really sure how to get that to charge beyond 20 watts on a normal charger. But yes, I said that right, 5 gigabit speed, even though on the same computer and cable the Pixel 7 Pro does 10 gigabit speed. Not really sure what's going on there. You also get 23 watts of wireless charging with the Pixel Stand Gen 2 and apparently only 12 watts on other chargers. We do get reverse wireless charging as usual, which struggles to charge my Pixel Watch. Oh, the irony. Then of course the screen is actually the main reason to buy one of these phones, and it's good. This is a 6.8-inch Super Actua display, which is a made-up name, but essentially doubles the brightness of the Pixel 7 Pro, which is kind of crazy. This 1344p display is essentially what the Pixel 8 Pro brought in, being a flat LTPO OLED panel that reaches 2000 nits in HDR and 3000 nits in peak brightness. Something that is noticeable in normal usage because it doesn't hit those numbers, but still feels brighter than the 1000 or so nits on my iPhone 14 Pro. I would guess about 1200 to 1600 nits of brightness since it does hurt my eyes at manual full brightness. This 486 pixels per inch display is actually the lowest pixel density in any Pro Pixel ever, with the Pixel 9 Pro Fold obviously being the exception. It is, however, a 1 to 120 Hz display, but that's something that we've had in Pro phones since the 7 Pro, of course, excluding the Fold. That said, this panel looks amazing, as you've been seeing. The hole punch for the front camera kind of blends in, but the fingerprint scanner is definitely better than ever, but that bar was, and still is, pretty low. With Pixel 7 bringing back Face Unlock and Pixel 8 adding security for apps like banking, the fingerprint scanner isn't really needed for me. Being ultrasonic is better on paper, but honestly, I never really found ultrasonic scanners to be good. Now that I've told you about this 6.4 inch tall, 221 gram phone, let's get into the phone. Out of the box, this phone comes with Android 14. Android 15 is apparently around the corner, but today is October 6th, so no Android 15 yet. Sorry. To power the phone, we get the Google Tensor G4 processor, which is paired with 16 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage, which does go up to 1 terabyte. This is possibly the only device that you can get that comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage stock. That's just wild to me. However, you definitely want to buy the 256 gigabyte or higher version. This is powered by a 5060 mAh cell, which is fine for me, actually being pretty good. The Tensor G4 is mainly aimed to be efficient, as the processor is a little bit better than the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Yes, the one from 2022. The benchmarks are technically impressive, but only has about a 30% performance increase over the Tensor G1. But that's what Google is trying to do because the performance is great. Not perfect, but also not bad. Operations are super smooth, and with that you can get fairly better battery life when compared to the Pixel 7 Pro, with even the 9 being really good on battery. Does it warm up with heavy gaming? Yes. Does it drop frames on high graphic games? Yes. Does it drain the battery because of it? No. The battery life and great processor performance is what this phone is made to do. You want the fastest CPU? Don't buy a Pixel. Do you want great cameras? Buy the Pixel. While I would choose this camera set over pretty much any phone right now, I can understand why some would say that Apple, Samsung, or even OnePlus with Hasselblad would be better. OnePlus is added into this equation because I am noticing that more people care more about color profiles over raw camera sensors. It makes sense because all these camera sensors are made by Sony, with a few made by Samsung. But Samsung, Apple, and OnePlus all follow pretty much their own look, similar to what people say about real cameras like Nikon, Canon, and Sony. And yes, I put Nikon first on purpose. With Google, the only thing that they do is they add contrast, but over the years the images haven't really stayed the same. Something like the Pixel 3 might be actually worse to some, but the color science on the front and back cameras were amazing back in the day. But back to the topic, let me just tell you about the cameras and just show you what they do. The front camera is pretty good, adds a little bit of brightness after the shot, but it's 103 degrees field of view, and it's a 42 megapixel sensor that is focusable. It only puts out a 10 megapixel shot, but it still looks pretty good. Capable of 4K 60 frames per second on here, which is good for vlogging, I guess. Then we flip to the back, which is where we have the Pro, but not cameras. This year we have a 50 megapixel optically stabilized main camera and 48 megapixel ultra-wide camera, which are both focusable and both on the Pixel 9 and 9 Pros, of course excluding the Fold. That means macro shots and laser autofocus for all of the Pixel 9 series, including the Fold. Then we have the 5x 48 megapixel telephoto camera, which is clearly optically stabilized. As for video on all these cameras, it gets weird. See, the video boost thing allows for 8K 30 frames per second on the main and telephoto sensor, but has to be uploaded to Google and you'll get a notification when the video is ready. Same with regular video, but I do notice that 4K 60 with video boost does not work on the ultra wide and seems to only use the main and telephoto cameras. Try it out, I guess, but it is a little strange. It is better, but also worse at the same time. With all this said, I will leave you with some photos and videos that I took over the month of using this phone. Enjoy! With this camera set, it should come as no surprise that the images produced are objectively amazing. I do notice times where it misses, but it's also so strange to see Google try different camera sensors over the years when they had a long stint using the same sensor. To me, Pixel photos are some of the best, but even with Video Boost, I would still stick to iPhones for video recording. Now this one is a struggle to decide, because are they features, gimmicks, reasons to buy, etc. But at the same time, I have to remember to let everyone watching know that this is my video. To be honest, some of these aren't gimmicks, but to me they can feel like that at times. Don't you want honesty in a review? Going back to the screen brightness, it sounds like a gimmick, but in reality, the brightness is actually really good in direct sunlight and in normally lit situations. For example, I was filming with a 1500 nit monitor in the sun and would struggle to see the screen, while I was able to see the Pixel 9 Pro XL screen so easily. Another thing that I noticed now that I have the iPhone 16 Pro is that the Pixel screen is actually slightly brighter in real life, and the image kind of looks better than the 16 Pro. There is a temperature sensor, and yeah, you'd be right to say that this is a gimmick, but also wrong. I find myself measuring temperature all the time just when I'm bored, but there was a situation where it actually mattered. I had a power outage for quite a long time and was actually able to use this to measure if the fridge and freezer were still cold enough. I often find myself just checking the ambient temperature in the room, which is pretty cool to see. I also saw that if it's like 78 degrees outside and the sun is beating down on something, and something is dark, it can get into the high 90s or even crack the 100-degree mark in freedom units, of course. The sensor is fun to play with and even teaches you a little thermodynamics. So I can agree that it can be a gimmick, but it turns out to be more useful than a headset jack to me. The high-res cameras are nice, but generally using higher megapixel modes results in worse images, so getting the full 50 megapixel shot can be nice if you know how to shoot and edit properly, but the average person will be more than fine with the 12.5 megapixel shots that come out of all of these rear cameras. What is strange though is with the 50 megapixel mode, all cameras produce 50.1 megapixel shots, even though there's only one 50 megapixel sensor and the others are 48 megapixel sensors. And again, can't do this on the front camera, even though it is a 42 megapixel sensor, just like how it's capable of framing 6K and even 8K video. The rest of this list right here, you can argue are features that people may or may not use, but I do like the fact that the list is ever growing and slightly hidden to the point where if you need it, you can look for it, and if you don't, it's not going to annoy you. Top Shot seems to activate at random times, and stuff like action pan and long exposure are definitely not for me, but the add me feature is definitely strange. Ultimately, it feels like an AI image and a stretch to call it not a gimmick. And now that I brought it up, we have to talk a little bit about AI. This is strange for two reasons. One, Gemini is pretty much on every phone, just like these editing features thanks to Google One. I mean, look at this, Magic Editor on my iPhone. There's a few extra crop tools on the 9 Pro, and Portrait Blur is just called Blur on the iPhone, but Pixel does get Zoom Enhance, which is hit or miss, and that's pretty much it. But for some reason, Markup is on the iPhone's Google Photos app and not on the Pixel for some reason. Another thing I noticed is that if you want to do HDR in 4K 60 frames per second, you do have to do Video Boost, while I think the iPhone 12 Pro has always been able to do this. Satellite SOS allows you to do the same thing as the iPhone 14 Pro and newer, contact emergency services when you're in areas when you cannot do that. That's nice, and definitely not a gimmick, especially since it's out of the way and has definitely been proven to be useful on other phones. Speaking of calling, I don't know if you can actually make calls with that, there are some call features that are cool, but also definitely can be gimmicks. Of course, call screening can be cool, but let's be honest, most people are just going to hang up even if it is a legitimate call. I've brought this up quite a few times in real life to different people, and they definitely hate this feature as the caller. Obviously, being the one who's answering the phone is pretty nice. Then features like Hold for Me, Direct My Call, and Call Notes all sound good, but I've never naturally experienced them, and the few times that I used Call Notes, the call was so short, I guess, because I was never given any notes. Then of course we have the Pixel Studio, the Screenshots app, and I mean, that's about it. Gemini seems to do pretty much every process online, so I wouldn't really say that this or the Advanced is specific to the Pixel 9 Pro, with the word Gemini not even being listed anywhere on the spec page. The Screenshots app is pretty cool, but everyone knows that it shouldn't be its own app. But for some reason, only my screenshots showed up. Like, what is on the phone is showing up, but not what's on my Google Photos for, I don't know, the last 7 years? The Pixel Studio is cool, but also, is this even allowed? For me, I think it would be cool to make stickers or logos, but then when selling or promoting, does this become a copyright issue? If so, then this becomes an image that you can make, and when you post it, it gets lost in a sea of other AI-generated photos that disappear into the abyss of photos that aren't even real. Alright, let's get out of the depressing and controversial area of this video and talk about the most important thing. As time goes on, things get better and better to the point where it makes you question, how can this get even better? Of course, it can still get better with the battery tech and camera upgrades, but for using the phone for normal activities and for entertainment, the Pixel 9 Pro XL is outstanding. That said, lots of other devices are. At $1,100, it's not that simple to recommend because at the end of the day, we obviously have to pay for these devices. At $800, people argue that the Pixel 9 is a bad price, but I mean for $300 extra, we get a screen that is barely bigger and barely better and bigger, telephoto camera and better, in quotes, front camera, video boost and all the features that come with that. Of course, there's more RAM and a bigger battery on paper, but honestly, I can say that this price jump isn't warranted. Even at a $200 premium when compared to the Pixel 9 to the 9 Pro, it's hard to justify. Like for example, I can buy the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro camera set, and it will just cost me $4 more. Yet those phones had a $300 price difference. Truly, this whole review is here to tell you to just buy the Pixel 9. That said, you don't always have to buy the Pixel 9 Pro XL new. On Swappa, this phone can be found cheaper than the $1,100 MSRP, some even in the $700s for almost new. Of course, over time this is going to get cheaper, but even $800 to $900 is a reasonable price for this phone. As I was using this phone, I really just wanted to go back to the Pixel 9. I carry two phones, so clearly one is going to have a better camera. On top of that, I find myself recording more videos than taking photos, so sure, the iPhone is going to be better at that. Truly, the only reason I would say to get the XL over the regular 9 is if you need that 5x telephoto sensor and want to have a larger screen. But at $300 more, it's not worth it. I'm not upgrading a Pixel phone. I mean, the only phones that I consistently upgrade is the iPhone, but I still have my Pixel 7 Pro. Will I regret not getting $540 off a phone for it? Sure, but paying another $500 plus for the phone I want isn't really worth it to me this year. I hope that Google actually continues the Pixel Pro with a small and large version, but the former is questionable. They probably won't because a lot of these sales were in favor of the Pixel 9 Pro XL, but when it comes to upgrading, I have to look at the Pixel 8 Pro in comparison. I saw that the Pixel 9 Pro XL had Wi-Fi 7, but so does the Pixel 8 Pro, just like the Super Actua display. I thought the Pixel 7 Pro and Pixel 9 Pro XL are similar, but the Pixel 8 Pro and the Pixel 9 Pro XL have so many similarities that explaining the difference will sound like the screen size, going from 6.7 to 6.8 inches. At the end of the day, this is a good deal for someone looking at a Pixel. Since the 7 series, there hasn't really been a better time to get a Pixel phone. But just like the 6 to 7 series, the 9 series seems like a polished version of the 8 series, obviously. So the question is, do you want to get the polished Pixel 9 Pro XL, or do you want to wait for the new stuff that the Pixel 10 series will bring? Will they even call it Pixel, or will Google move on from that name? All I know is that Google hit it out of the park with this phone, and I'm truly impressed, even as someone that is no longer a fan of big phones. To me, this design is special and looks cool because it stands out. When you see the back of the phone, you know that it's a modern Pixel, and you will see this for 7 years of software updates, assuming that the battery life can even come close to lasting that long. And that's my long review of the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL. Thank you for making it here, as I feel like a decent amount of this video was focused on the 9 and 9 Pro, but reviewing the Pixel 9 Pro XL. This is a nice large phone that you won't be disappointed by, though there are some drawbacks when you compare to different manufacturers. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and as always, thanks for watching.